so it was me, the only person from my family, and then I have this whole other family there, and I just remember seeing my dad walking in like his jumpsuit, and that was one of the most life-changing events for me in my whole life. It was like I knew what had happened, I knew this story, but it wasn't until seeing that it was like, this is real life. Like, that's my dad up there. I see him in cuffs, I see him in front of the judge, and it was like, this, like, that's crazy.
We've been this has been in the works for a while now.
Really prepping for this.
Yeah, you've been on the list of people to get to.
Oh,
just
good.
it's just
Thought I was on the bottom.
No, you were
okay.
right in the middle. And
so less legs.
Yeah, I guess. No, we were excited to have you on. It was a team decision, and we now have you. So
good. I'm glad.
Where to start?
It's your podcast.
So you teach?
I teach
first
grade.
Yeah. When did you decide you wanted to be a teacher? Because we've known each other. We've been friends for a while.
Yes.
I don't know how long. Maybe 5 years now.
Like 6.
6 years. Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't think teaching was always in your plan, was it?
It was. So
Okay.
growing up, I kind of despised the idea of teaching because my whole family. I come from a family of teachers, uncles, aunts, grandpas, whatever, everyone.
Yeah.
And so I was like, that's not me. I don't want to be poor. I don't want to, whatever. And then in high school, I had a teacher that was like, did you know that you would be actually just good teacher and you'd be crazy and you kind of have to do it? And I was like, okay, well, I guess. Because I really respected him. So I was like, I'm going to do it. And
why do you say that? Did he give like any reasons, or just like you'd be good at this?
He was just like, you'd be so wacky. You would just be so funny, and you would be the kind of teacher that would come to school in costumes and just like teach the kids, and they'd all listen to you, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you know what? Like, I don't know. I feel kind of wacky. I feel like I can vibe with that.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. I was thinking about what I would want to teach, and I really liked music. So I studied music in college. I studied music education, which is really cool. It was full of great experiences, and then I got to education, and I started going into classrooms more because I didn't start teaching right away. And so I started going into classrooms, and I was like, I really just want to teach gen ed. Like, I love teaching. I loved seeing like little lights flicker on in kids' head. Like, oh, this is how I read that word.
Gen ed?
Yeah, general education.
Okay, gotcha. I didn't know the acronyms. Gen ed, guys.
Gen ed.
So is that like what grade would that be? Or just in general,
it's
anything?
Any grade. So elementary, K-6, any of those classes would be gen ed, general education.
Okay.
Because it's not music, right? So, like, I wasn't doing a special.
Oh, okay, I got you. Yeah, like an elective course.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
So why did you pick gen ed? You just liked all the topics, or what?
It just kind of fit with the positions that were open at the school, the time that I was ready to start teaching, and just what they had to offer. And so it was kind of like, okay, I guess. Because I was working in SPED, and I love SPED. Like, that's my ultimate goal still, is to be able to be a SPED skills teacher.
That's special education, right?
Special education.
So special needs.
Sorry,
kids.
yes. Yeah. So, like, that's autism, Down syndrome, all the stuff that, like, they need that special, they need the extra attention and the help in there.
So you like working with that group?
I love it. It's my dream. I think it's the funnest and the coolest thing in the whole entire world.
Yeah.
But the year after my first year in SPED, my directors were like, hey, we have an opening. We need a Spanish teacher. And I was like, well, I know Spanish. And they're like,
right.
It'd be first grade. And I was like, I love the little kids. Like, that's perfect. And so I started doing that and kind of just fell in love with it right away. Because it was just the coolest thing. Like, they're 6 years old. They don't know a ton about anything. And just seeing how much they can grow and how much of it clicks in their head, whether it's the language or just reading, writing. Like, they're learning all the foundations of everything they need in the world. So it was just, I don't know. It's like a little bit magical.
Yeah. So which do you like better? Do you still want to go back to special SPED, right?
Yeah.
Or do you think you'll stick it out in gen, or what do you think?
I think I would be happy in gen ed. I love it. I think it's awesome. But the ultimate dream goal is to go to SPED.
Nice. Like full-time SPED.
Yeah.
And what would that entail? Like, obviously you're trying to teach similar stuff because you want them to learn, but it's got to be more tailored, right?
Yeah, it's completely adapted to each kid. So in education we have something called an IEP. It's an individualized education plan. So each kid that has an IEP has different accommodations for them. So, like, some will go to, say they're in 5th grade, they'll go to a 3rd grade class for math because that's what they can acknowledge what their levels are at.
That's their level, right?
So things like that. So it'd be totally different between than teaching in a gen ed classroom because you have to tailor everything to every different student. So like in a sped skills classroom, you have a bunch of different paraprofessionals and they'll take one kid at a time and do morning work with them, which is going to look totally different than every other kid in the class.
Okay, yeah.
So it'd be a lot of like building foundations for some kids and then seeing what other kids can do, like this kind of math. It's just like every day is unpredictable. A lot of dancing. You do a lot of dancing in sped because I mean,
the kids or the teacher?
Everyone. You have to dance. You have to do something that's fun because a lot of times with special needs kids, it's hard for, I feel like everyone in general, especially myself, because like the ADHD and whatever.
Sure.
But like it's hard to focus. It's hard to sit still in school. I hate it. I like do dances and games with my kids all the time. And so in sped, it's just like kind of an extra form of motivation. Like, hey, let's do this work for 5 minutes and then we get to do a just dance. Or like, hey, let's do this for 10 minutes. We're going to go outside and throw a ball around.
Right.
So a lot of if-thens, give and take. Like, we do this, then we get to do this fun activity. The not so fun side of it is just a lot of paperwork, making a lot of plans, deciding what course is the most appropriate and will be the most successful for the different kids. But it's really cool. And the tantrums and
some of the behavioral stuff.
Yeah.
Is there one teacher per kid, or is it like a teacher per group, or how do they break it out? Because I'm assuming it's probably a lot, there's probably a lot more time invested in each kid because they have, that special learning that they have to go through.
Yeah, so there's a main. So in SPED, there are 2 categories, kind of. At least that's how it is on my campus. There's the skills, which is where the kids are there full time, right? From 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., you have the severely autistic that need that extra help. You have Down syndrome. You have all these different things.
Yeah.
So there's one main teacher for that skills classroom, and then there's the different paras. And so they are the ones that will help the kids with their morning work or take them to their different classrooms and kind of just be one-on-one with them to guide them with whatever they need.
Right.
And then there's the other side, skills resource, which that is for kids. They still have IEP, so they still have those accommodations and stuff, but it could be things like they have some emotional dysregulation. They need some help learning how to control their emotions that way or kind of just adapt to that social environment that's kind of new to them.
Okay, yeah.
And then there are a lot of kids with autism. They're really high functioning, but it's same. They're a little bit dysregulated. They need some more of that help. Or kids that need more of a quiet testing environment. They kind of just work on all of those things with them. And so then with that one, there's one main teacher, and she'll take groups at a time.
Okay. All right. So it's kind of mixed and broken out at the same time. That's cool. That's very cool. I didn't realize that. So you mentioned with like you have ADHD.
Yeah.
How does that because I'm assuming that plays a factor. Like how have you managed to utilize that in the classroom and also balance that with teaching? Because I think that can be a whole. When did you find out you had ADHD?
So I always knew. I guess no, I didn't always know. It wasn't until I started working in SPED, and the SPED teacher is like, "You're so ADD," and I was like, "What are you talking about?" No, I'm not. And she's like, "No, like you 100% you're ADD," and they can't like diagnose you.
Right.
And so I kind of just brushed it off, but then I started teaching, and I was like, "This is super hard," right? Because in high school I did well, college I did well, but like I always had a hard time focusing, sitting in classes, doing that, so I would ditch a lot.
Right.
And I was a pretty bright kid, so I didn't struggle too much. I could kind of just get away with going for a little, then leaving and doing tests.
Yeah.
But when I started teaching, that's a totally different monster in itself. And so I was like, hey, I'm going to go to the doctor, and I want to, like, find out for sure. And within 5 minutes, they're like, you have ADHD. And that's, like, we need to figure it out. And so they just started me on different medications. I feel like I'm not on medication right now, and I'm still managing.
Right.
But I feel like just knowing, I feel like being aware of it is like, oh, like, okay, people have ADHD all the time. How do you manage? How do you do these different things? Because that's just, it's pretty common.
Yeah.
I feel like it helps me relate to the kids because I teach 6-year-olds and they're all little spazzes, right? So it's like, I can't sit for more than 10 minutes. And I'm like, yeah, I can't either. You're right. So like, I feel like we kind of are one-on-one the same page. It's like, yeah, let's all do this work together and then we all get a reward after. And so it kind of helps me bond with the kids more that way and kind of just understand where they're coming from. I feel like if I didn't have ADHD, I would be really impatient with them and kind of just be like, what are you guys talking about, guys? It's not that hard.
Right.
And I think it's kind of just taught me a lot about my work ethic and what works for me because a lot of people will be like, you just have to set aside this time or you have to stay after work for 3 hours and get this done or whatever. Like a lot of teachers are known for coming in really early, staying really late. I can't do that. I will lose my mind, go bonkers. And so it's kind of just finding ways to adapt to find study habits or work habits that work for me, right?
Right.
Because it's not impossible. Like ADHD is just different.
Right. It's just a different way of thinking.
Yeah.
What systems have worked for you? Have you found? Obviously, you're probably still exploring things that work and don't work, but what thus far?
I find I like a lot of working with something in the background, right? So like I'll take some stuff home, and if I have a movie going on, I can work for hours. Or like if I'm at work, if I have a friend that's coming in there and talking to me, I can do stuff all day long. Like as long as I'm occupied in at least 2 different ways, I can do whatever for forever.
Gotcha. Okay.
Which is really fun.
So it's like giving your brain a little more stimulation.
Yeah.
Helps keep you more focused. Interesting. That's cool. Is it because I've heard people when they have ADHD, some people are like they'll say there's certain things that they just can't focus, but then there's like certain things that they get like hyper focused on. Like they can hyper fixate on certain topics, but on other things they can't. And then sometimes people will say, kind of like your situation where it's like, oh, I need multiple things at the same time to. So have you noticed there's like certain things that you hyper fixate on versus, or like can hyper focus in on versus other things, or not necessarily?
Kind of. A lot of times with ADHD, there's ADHD, and then there are a lot of times you'll find ADHD with autism. I'm not autistic, right? So I don't see so much of the hyperfixation. Obviously, there are things that interest me more and things that I'm more in tune with, you could say. But a lot of times you'll see people like with ADHD and autism, and they'll have something, whether it's music instruments or something, or a card game or something, where as soon as that's in, they're locked in, like there's no breaking it.
Okay, that makes sense. I didn't know that. I didn't realize there was sometimes attached to autism as well. Interesting. So sometimes they have like something that they get locked into or fixate on. Yeah. Interesting. I didn't realize that. That's super cool though. So what do you like? Just walk me through a typical day in the life of Lex.
Of Miss Z. I start as Miss Z, Monday through Friday.
Miss what?
Miss Z.
Miss Z.
You know?
Yes. Okay.
My teacher name. I have to leave my house at 7 to get to work on time. So usually I set my alarm for 6, and then 6:15, and then 6:35. And then I end up actually getting out of bed at like 6:45, 6:50. And I hurry. I leave for work. I do my makeup in the car every single day because I want to savor any minutes of time in my bed. And then I get to work, and I usually try to print everything the day before during like breaks and stuff. So I just get there and I relax, and I go talk to some teachers and catch up on the day before. And then it's 8 o'clock, the bell rings, the kids come in, I teach. I usually start with reading stuff, and then we move on to math, and then we do our history and science, and then we kind of figure out ways to sprinkle in games throughout the day. And that's my teaching day. Then I'll go talk to some teacher friends some more, and then I have my 30-minute drive home. I'll get home, I'll nap, and then
respect
whatever activity. I love the naps. I can't do it without them. And then it's just whatever activities in the night, whether it's volleyball or friends or movies or something.
Yeah. Did you always want to do like? Do you think you always stick with younger kid education, meaning like that first to whatever 6th grade, or do you think you'll go above that, or what do you think?
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to going to a higher grade. I don't want to do middle school. I'd really just, that's not my vibe.
I think it takes a special someone to do it.
It really does. It's like, I have the most respect and the most admiration for people who did middle school, because that is just gnarly. That is not in my skill set.
It's probably highly entertaining. There's probably a lot going on.
For anyone else. I feel like the teachers must, I couldn't. Even thinking about it, imagining myself there makes me really anxious and just, love the middle school kids. Just, anyway. But yeah, I think if I were to do SPED, which is the goal, I don't know that I could do high school because they're really strong and really fast. And so I would get taken down. And so I think the K6 is good for me because I can still, keep up with them.
Right. Oh, I guess that's true. As they go for, like, there's SPED in junior high, there's SPED in high school, there's all sorts of levels. I don't know why I assumed that, like, stopped at K through 6. But
as soon as you go to 7th grade, you are no longer having Down syndrome.
Yeah, you no longer deal with that. Okay, that makes sense. So you probably would want to stick more in the younger grades, most likely.
They're so magic.
Cool. Yeah, they are cute. I guess they are cute little kids. And how long have you been at where you currently are? We won't necessarily name where you're working, but how long have you been?
I've been there. This is my 4th year, but my 2nd year teaching. So I started out as administrative assistant, and then I went to SPED, and then now I'm teaching.
Interesting. So, like, what if I wanted to be like a teacher? What would be like like what would you tell me is the biggest things I need to know, like coming in?
You need to know
Yeah, like what's
everything.
everything? Shoot, I'm way behind on that.
I feel, well, kids just have questions about anything and everything all the time, and you have to have a good answer. Like, whether the question is just out of pocket or, like, inappropriate, even if they didn't mean it, you have to have something ready for them. And you have to have a lot of patience. These kids, this is their first time at life, right? Like, this is their first time going to anything in the world, and so they're figuring out what their social lives are like, what their social personalities are like. They're finding out that maybe they're way smarter than some kids in their perspective, or maybe they're way behind than what they're seeing their peers at, and learning how to talk them through that, right? Like, letting them encourage each other and not be like, I'm not a smart, I'm a stupid kid. Like, finding whatever ways you can avoid that happening. I would advise you to know that you just have to love everyone. I feel like that's the biggest thing. I feel like I talk about that all the time is you just have to love. Even if you don't feel love, you just have to say love and love and love. And if you fake it, then you'll feel love soon enough.
Yeah. You know, you mentioned that we were talking a little bit earlier, and then also I sent you that little questionnaire, but you mentioned like empathy and loving people and being kind and understanding of people. Like, one, you mentioned you feel like that's a strong suit of yours.
Yeah.
But also, I don't know if it's like a mantra or motto or like something you believe in. I don't know what the right term is. Probably mantra, mantra you try to live by.
Yeah.
So like explain that a little bit more, because I think everybody wants to be. Okay, let's take that back. I don't think everybody wants to be empathetic and loving. Let's start there.
Sure.
But I think in theory, most people are like, that's a good thing to do, right? Be empathetic.
Yeah.
So explain that to me. Like, why? Like, obviously, even with your answer about the young kids at school, like part of that comes from a place like you just want to love and help these kids, right? And I think that's so key for being a good teacher, is like having a big heart and loving people and like meeting them where they are. And
right.
So like, where does that come from? Why do you have such a big belief in like that as like a core attribute of your personality?
I mean, I feel like there are a few different factors. I don't know how much you talk about like Jesus and stuff on your podcast.
Oh, you can talk about it for sure.
I just feel like one of the biggest things and the first things that we learn about Jesus is always that he would love, right? We have those bracelets that go around everywhere. What would Jesus do? He would love first. And I think about, like, for example, a story of Jesus with the adulterous woman. And she reached out to him. She touched his robe. And instead of turning his back and just ignoring it, because there were tons and tons of people that were reaching out and touching him anyway, he looked back. Who touched me? Finds this woman, and instead of being like, shame on you, I'm the savior, you cannot touch me because you are unclean, it was, you are forgiven. Like, your faith, the way that you were trying, you are forgiven. And obviously that's like the epitome of an example.
Right.
But we just never know. We never know the efforts that people are going to. I'm not perfect. I get really mad at people. I struggle with saying mean things sometimes, and I wish I didn't. But it's like, you don't know what people are doing, and you don't know what they're struggling with, which sounds so cliche. But it's true. Like, someone could be really snappy and really mean to me because, I don't know, someone died. Or someone is getting on their nerves or something. Like, it could have nothing to do with me, and I just happened to be the lucky one that they took it out on.
Right.
And I know I've been there. Like, I know I've been having bad days, and I'm just snotty. Like, there have been several times with my mom where I'll, like, I don't even realize I'm doing it, and she's like, hey, I know you had a bad day, but don't. Like, I'm not the one that you should be taking it out on. Like, let me just support you and be here for you. And I feel like that's kind of an eye-opener to me. It's like, you're right. Like, we should just be here and ready to support each other, because people are going to be having bad days. And people are going to be going through hard times. And if we're straight off the bat judgmental in a negative way, or if we shut them down, then that kind of just encourages that behavior. It's like, I'm mad, no one likes me, I'm going to keep doing this because, no one does like me. No one's giving me that time of day. No one's showing me that my thoughts are worth listening to.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's true. Yeah, it's like if we... like somebody may be getting upset at us, right? But it probably has way more to do with what's internally going on with them than anything to do with what's going on. I mean, granted, maybe if you do something really mean to someone, that might be a trigger. But for the most part, like, it's there. We don't know what internally is going on, right? Like, we may have just been like the last straw that broke the camel's back. But
yes, and it's not like an excuse for behavior, right? Like, obviously, when people are doing things to you and it's rude or whatever, crossing certain borders, certain lines, it's like, okay, yes, you need to talk about it, and it can't just be excused. It's not just like, oh, this kid is being a total jerk, I just have to love him. Like, you do love him, but it doesn't mean that they can just keep treating you this way. I think that communication is a huge part of that. Like, you can still be compassionate and have empathy while still holding a boundary and saying, that's not okay with me. Like,
Right.
I love you, I'm here for you, but you still have to treat me like a person, because that's the relationship we have. That is, like, I'm still a person too.
Right.
I think that's huge.
Yeah, no, that open, honest communication, I think, kind of like your mom, right? Just where you gave that example of saying, like, I'm still here for you, right? Still making you feel loved and accepted, and knowing, like, this isn't to, like, abandon you or anything like that, or, like, make you feel bad, but, like, I'm not the person, like, you don't need to beat up on me.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes I think there's lots of relationships where one person can easily become the floor mat or whatever, right? Kind of the beating pole.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because they're more, kind or loving than the other, or vice versa, whatever it may be. But yeah, that can happen pretty quickly if there's not good communication. Yeah. So I'm curious and you and I, like I said, we've been friends a long time, and in the questionnaire, and you can share as much or little as you want. I don't want to pry too deep, but you had an interesting growing up in high school, and some pretty, I would say, unique things happened to you in your life that don't probably happen to everybody. And so, and I think that that obviously events and experiences, I'll let you share what you want to share, but events and experiences like that change your view of the world, change your outlook on life, and it can either be for the positive or the worst. And I think you obviously have a very positive and glowing and great outlook on life.
Thank you.
I mean, just the fact that you're working with young kids and making them feel special, and as you explain it, but I think that takes a strong personality. So I think people would benefit from hearing a little bit more about your experiences and how you see the world and things like that. So I'll let you share more. Obviously, I've kind of given a little bit, but share as much or a little as you want. And yeah.
Okay, anyway, so as I was saying, I grew up in a really loving family. Me and my mom weren't super close growing up. We butted heads a lot. We have very similar personalities, but very different opinions. And so it was really hard to get along on things that we just didn't agree with.
Sure.
And there was no effort on my part. I just didn't care. It was me and my mom fighting, that's it.
Right. And you were in high school, right, at this point?
I was in high school, yeah. I'm a teenager. It's just, super annoying. Me and my dad were best friends. He was just super caring, super loving, super affectionate. And, if I would ever fight with my mom, he's like, I know, it's just, hard and crazy, and I'm sorry that you have to, whatever, right?
Sure.
Totally validating, even more so than maybe he should have. But, it just felt very validating and very, what's the word? I feel like sufficient is what's coming to mind. I don't know.
Yeah, caring, sufficient. Yeah. Was there for you, in your corner, something like that. Yeah.
So we were super, super close. When I was 15, it was the very end of my sophomore year. There was a bunch of stuff that went on with my dad. And he ended up getting arrested and going to prison. And so I remember him getting arrested and going to his sentencing, and there was another family involved. And so it was me, the only person from my family, and then I have this whole other family there. And I just remember seeing my dad walking in his jumpsuit, and that was one of the most life-changing events for me in my whole life. It was I knew what had happened. I knew this story, but it wasn't until seeing that it was this is real life. That's my dad up there. I see him in cuffs. I see him in front of the judge, and it was that's crazy. After he went to prison, he served his time. He ended up getting deported because he was a resident. So he was here legally, but as a resident, if you commit a crime of a certain extent, they'll deport you. They'll take away your permanent status. And so anyway, when I was dealing with all of this, I was in high school, like I said, and just getting out of high school. Yeah. And I feel the best way I can describe it is I just felt really entitled to anger. I was okay, I talked a lot to people, my seminary teachers, institute teachers, about the power of the atonement. And I remember learning, okay, the atonement is not just for people who have sinned or have done wrong, but it's people that have had wrong done to them. And so I remember that made a huge impact on me, but I kind of took advantage of it. It was okay, well, the atonement is for me because I had this bad thing happen to me, so I'm just going to be mad. If Jesus already took care of it, then I don't have to worry about it. I totally stopped progressing on myself as a person because I felt entitled to, right?
I see. Yeah,
and so I'm not saying that being hurt and being angry is wrong or bad, because it was just a natural reaction.
Sure.
Right? It's something that's going to come, and it's something you have to accept and deal with, because if you don't, it never goes away.
Sure.
But I feel I was kind of letting it just take over. It kind of just became my natural state of being, and I was putting on a face for everything else,
Oh, I see. Okay.
which got me through some time, but it gets exhausting, right? Like trying to
Sure.
pretend and do something that you're not really feeling.
Keep it together and like
Yeah.
hold this persona. Yeah,
So
yeah.
I would like be bubbly during the day, and I would come home and just cry and be sad and be mad and like hate
Right.
everything and everyone, and like, this is so dumb.
Right.
And so
Do you think, sorry to interrupt,
go ahead.
do you think it was because you were trying to, because I'm sure, you know, when you have a close relationship with someone like your dad, and then it hits you, like you said, and then do you think it was partially out of you trying to protect yourself, or where do you think that came from?
kind of, honestly, I think a lot of it had to do with embarrassment. Like, I grew up, and the majority of my friends are like predominantly white members of the church, families together, and it was embarrassing. Like, it was embarrassing that I had to tell my friends, like, yeah, my parents are divorced, my dad went to prison, got deported, blah, blah, stuff. So I like didn't talk about it.
I gotcha.
And so it just felt easier to pretend like everything was chilling, you know?
And especially if you feel that and like everyone knows it.
Yeah.
It's almost like you can't verbalize it, so then you can't process it. You can't get it
Right.
out, and so it's like I just gotta protect and hide it inside of me.
Oh, for sure. And I
Gotcha.
had like so many people, so many leaders in the church came to me right after everything happened and were like, "Oh my gosh, we're so impressed with you. Like, you are such a light and so strong," and blah blah all these things. And so it was like, okay, this label has been placed upon me, and I have to live upon it, or else I'm like
Right.
disappointing all these people, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so I put this standard on myself of like, I can't be anything less than what all of these people have already said that I am.
Totally. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I don't know. I didn't like. Obviously, he didn't die, but grieving is real, whether it's someone that's alive or someone that's dead, because it's a different way, right? And
Totally.
so I didn't allow myself that time to actually grieve. It was more just being mad,
Right.
being mad and being fake and lying about what I really felt like.
Well, and he's not really, and truthfully, he's not a part of your daily life anymore. So in
Right.
some ways, it is like he's not dead, but you know,
Yeah.
away from you, right?
Right.
So that grieving process totally makes sense. Totally. So sorry, I totally interrupted your
No, you're
train
good.
of thought.
I lost my train of thought. I'm trying to find it again.
I think you were mentioning how you were you were going to school feeling bubbly and happy, but then you go home and just felt like
Yeah.
you're covering it all up.
Yeah, so I just remember getting really close with one of my institute teachers and being like, I'm really struggling with this. Like, it started affecting more than just my mood when I go home. Like, it was doing my dailies. I didn't want to do any of my work. I wasn't eating. I wasn't feeling like going and being around anyone. Like, I just was totally like dealing with depression and stuff like that.
Right.
Which I had experience with, and I knew that was something that I struggled with, but it was just kind of reaching a peak
Sure.
for that time. And so I was like, okay, well, something's got to give. I can't keep saying, okay, well, it's the atonement and that's it. I have to like,
Right.
it's a two-way street. So like, Jesus' arms are stretched out. I have to reach for them too, you know?
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
so I feel like that's when I did a lot of self-reflection and being like, okay, yeah, this situation sucked and it was really hard and really sad, but there are still ways that I need to progress. Like, it didn't just happen to me. This is a part of my life. I couldn't just keep seeing myself as a victim. It was, okay, well, how do I grow? How is this, like, why is this a part of my life to help me be better?
Interesting.
And so I
yeah.
feel like once I started doing it that way, it kind of helped me have more compassion on him, which is what we were initially talking about, right? So, like, I started thinking of my dad being like, okay, well, this is a man who's 50 years old, and whether or not his actions were done with malintent, which, whatever, he lost his whole family, right? He lost his wife. He had 4 kids. His grandkids were just starting to be born. He got deported out of a country that he'd been in for 20 years.
Right.
And so it's like, yeah, this is all just a natural outcome, natural consequence of what his decisions were. It still sucks, and it still is really sad and really hard.
Yeah.
And so I feel like kind of taking a step back and trying to have that compassion, and kind of just seeing, I don't know, I just keep going back to Jesus and the adulterous woman. Like, Jesus would have gone to my dad and he wouldn't have said, shame on you. Like,
Right.
how dare you reach for me? He would have been like, I come to me. You know what I mean? And so I think that I started seeing the atonement as a tool instead of just something that was there. And it was like, okay, I have to use this. I have to figure out how to have this compassion with my dad, even if I wasn't ready to forgive. It was something that I needed to do for my sake because I wasn't progressing. I wasn't finding joy in things that I should have been.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think we oftentimes, internalize, especially the atonement, right, as a thing that helps us get over something, but or something that can protect us or help us in a time of need. But it really can be utilized as a help me help me have a greater level of compassion or a greater level of understanding beyond what I'm capable of at this current moment. Huh. That's interesting. And you said you had some seminary or institute type teachers who you talked to about that, but what exactly kind of spurred that for you, I guess? Was it just conversations with them? Was it just over time that you kind of it kind of came to you? What kind of led to you having that realization, I guess?
I think the biggest part of it was the conversations, just getting an outside perspective, someone who, like with seminary teachers, it's a little different because it had just happened, right? Like, it was super fresh. The wound was open. I was really emotional, and they were kind of just reacting to my reactions.
Sure.
But once I got to Institute, it was like, okay, I'd had this for some time. Now I was just dealing with the after effects. And so then being able to provide this outside perspective using wisdom rather than just reaction kind of helped open my eyes. I feel like I had to go in with open ears, and they were able to provide some advice and some counsel that was more than just, yes, this is so hard, I'm so sorry. It was, okay, well, what are we going to do? Yeah. Like, they had to provide the options, right? Because when people give you advice, it's kind of like options. The options that they were giving me was action-based instead of reaction. Wallow, feel sad, let it happen, which is great, and it's time. But at some point, you have to progress. You have to move forward.
Right. Okay, that totally makes sense. Did you feel like, because obviously you said you've got a pretty decent sized family, family members, brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts. Did they take, what happened similarly, or do you feel like you've kind of like handled it better than others, or what has that been like? What's been the experience now that you've kind of processed it, and how has that helped you in other ways?
I feel like it's super, super different. My whole family is Hispanic, and not to be one to feed into stereotypes, but I feel like some stereotypes just kind of exist because it's what it is.
Sure.
It's like Latinos, I'm Mexican. Mexicans tend to be very passionate, very fiery, very emotional, and that's just kind of a natural state of being. And I love it. I think it's great, and I feel lots of emotions in a really big way, and it's awesome.
Totally.
But with things like this, when it comes to anger and stuff, it's just like out the window, mad forever, and it's done, right? So like a lot of my extended family, if not all of them, are just still in this angry place. They want nothing to do with him, hatred, which I also understand. Like, if someone did that to my sister, I would hate them as well, because it's like a protective thing.
Right.
My mom is more in the place of like passive aggressive. Obviously, it's so horrible and it's so hard, but I feel like she kind of put it on her shoulders of, I have to be a strong woman for my kids. I have to be a strong mom. I have to show that this isn't destroying me and isn't hurting me. So I feel like she hasn't dealt with it the way that she totally could. And my siblings, each one of my siblings has a different perspective on the situation. Like, my sister totally despises the guy, wants nothing to do with him ever again in her whole life.
Sure.
My oldest brother, both of my brothers left the church. And so my oldest brother is kind of just like, I don't really care. Like, he's still my dad. He still did these things growing up. He still did this hard work. And so he just kind of is indifferent. And then my other brother kind of goes back and forth. He'll go through phases where he does feel more compassionate and wants more involvement with him, and kind of misses that father figure. And then he'll go to phases where it's like, I don't care. I don't want him. I don't really need him in my life, kind of thing.
Gotcha. Interesting. Yeah, it's always it's always interesting to see how even people close to us, where you think, oh, we have similar upbringings, similar experiences, life experiences, went to similar schools, had similar friends. Like, you'd think, oh, okay, our reaction or interaction will be similar,
right?
But how it can be so different across the board. So that is really interesting. You talk a lot about, like, even when I first asked you about empathy, you talked about Christ and the kind of the focal point that he plays in your life. And I think a lot of times, especially when something bad or tragic or unexpected happens in your life or anybody's life, it's really easy to turn away from like church, Christ, some of those foundational things that maybe they're really good for you, but in the moment it's like, I don't want to. So what made you? Because you even said some of your family members they're not part of church for whatever reason they have. What made you turn in to Christ and the church, and maybe it was friends, maybe something else, but what helped you? Because I think a lot of people struggle with bad things or unfortunate things happening, and it's hard sometimes to turn more into Christ and those type of things.
I feel like absolutely I have had times where I just feel angry with God, which
Yeah.
like I shouldn't, and it's not fair to him, but it's honest, right? Like there have
Sure.
been times where I just feel mad and I'll like say a prayer, but I'm like, I don't really want to talk to you, but I'm saying this prayer because this is what we do, right? Kind of thing.
Totally.
But I feel very fortunate in that when things in my life started to happen, I had already had experiences in my life where I felt the Spirit. Like I undeniably knew the truth. I was like, I know this for a fact, and this is a core. This is a part of my foundation.
Right.
And so when things started to get really tough, it was like leaving the church or stepping away or doing any of that wasn't even an option that crossed my mind. It was like, I've already felt these things. I've already known these things. And yes, there are doubts or questions or things that just don't make sense. But if I already have this foundation, it doesn't make any more sense to step away.
Right.
Like it's either you have to go and find out and pray and ask people that you trust, or you have to just trust that you're going to find answers later, which is so hard. And I feel like that's where a lot of people kind of fall away. It's like they'll bring up things from the past, like the church's history, or just things that don't make sense to them. And it's like, okay, well, this doesn't make sense, so it can't be true. It can't be right. It can't be fitting. But it's a huge thing of trust, which feels kind of silly to say, but it's a huge part of it.
Yeah. How have you how have you coped with that? Because I know, like, and I think it's totally normal too, that it's like having moments where you're frustrated or upset at God or at Christ or whatever people believe in, but having those moments where you're upset with them or feel like why is this happening to me? This is totally unfair. I don't deserve this. Like, I think people feel bad for feeling that way, but it's like that's totally normal.
Yeah.
And like, I think sometimes, especially with God, and because he's not like a tangible person that's like sitting right next to us, like we're sitting across from each other, it's hard to feel like put it into a relationship type of situation. We think of it's kind of like one step removed. And so it's like, but it's just like, you know what? Even as friends, we've had times where we got mad at each other and we were like, that person was ticked me off,
Yeah.
And so like, that's a normal part of any relationship.
Yeah.
And so I guess what helped you when you talked about not knowing why or not having the answers to questions that were like, you wanted answers to, how did you deal with that? Because I think I think that is something that people deal with, and it's so hard to like know what to, like, how do I deal with not knowing this thing and trusting that something maybe will work out?
Yeah. I think, again, like I said before, a lot of it was just reminding myself of the things that I'd felt before. I'd had prayers, I'd had questions, and I have had them answered, right? And so it's like, okay, well, I have to know, like, God answered this question before, he can answer more questions. And then kind of just, I think a huge part for me is I love talking to other people. I love hearing other people's stories and kind of just getting counsel from other people, hearing what their experiences are like. And so I think just hearing, okay, someone else has felt similar to me. Someone else has had a question that they didn't feel was getting answered, and then eventually they got there. I feel like that was a huge thing. It's like, I have had this experience before, I can do it again. A huge patience thing, which is something I'm really bad at. I feel like I'm really impatient with things like that. And so it's just kind of having to humble myself and being like, okay, if I already know it's true, then I have to just chill out for a sec.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting where it's like, I think you made a good point there where it's like we have like a core foundation that we build our life or our beliefs on. And when stuff happens or our life gets rattled, it's like some people want to tear down the whole foundation, like burn the house down, pull the foundation out, and you're going, and I think you made a good point. You're like, it didn't make sense to me. Like, why would I take away the one foundation that is solid that I know and have experiences with? But you make a good point. It's like, if you don't have some solid experiences that you go, okay, I definitely know this was real.
Yeah.
And I know that was there. I don't exactly know how I know that, but I know it was there. Then it's easy to find the holes.
Yeah.
From there, So I don't know. I just think that's so insightful for people to hear because I don't think it's something we always talk about. I don't know if that's something you've heard a lot from people as you talk to people. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I started thinking about my brother. So my oldest brother left the church before my other brother did. And I remember in his letter, him being like, like the biggest reason I'm leaving is because I've never felt the Spirit. I've never felt a confirmation or an answer to my prayers, which is totally valid, right?
Sure.
Like a lot of people will feel that way, and a lot of people leave because of things like that, which is totally, I don't want to like discredit or do any of that.
Right, right.
And it feels kind of silly to say because I feel like I've always tried to do this, but I feel like answers are gonna look different. You can't expect for someone to tap on your shoulder, say, this is the answer. You have to take a step back for a lot of things and realize, okay, if I don't have an answer to this, let's look at other ways and other things that God has done for me in my life, right? And so I think of my brother who says he's never gotten this answer. I think of all the blessings that he's had in his life that there's no way he could have had without the guidance, without the help, without the blessings that God has given him, right? Like our family growing up, we may have had a tough time the last 10 years, but everything before that, like we were a very loving family. We were super close. We were going to church together all the time. And like, I think of his mission experience. He had an amazing time and he had so much love for the people, which I know he wouldn't have been able to have just by being there, right? Like that's the Spirit that was helping him feel this Christ-like love for other people. I feel like it's just a lot of things where you have to take a step back and see, this is God's involvement. This is him showing you that he's there, that he's real, that he is doing this for you. And people kind of just expect it to come to them in a point blank, obvious way. And it doesn't work that way.
Right. Yeah. It's like sometimes people are looking for this, big, bright, shiny moment or like big sign. And it's like, God's usually not doing that, right? It's like these little moments along the way.
Yes.
At least I don't know. That's been my experience, at least for times that he's helped. But
and like sometimes he will, right? Like sometimes he will be like, "Hey, this is what your answer is," but the majority of the time he's not shouting out at you.
Right. Well, and I think there's so many things too that we don't even like you're mentioning, that we don't even recognize as his hand in our life or helping out because we're just moving through life. And but if you really take some time to just go, okay, let me look at what I really have in my life and the opportunities I have and what I've been given. And you start going, okay, I don't think I would have gone that if you start putting the pieces together and go, okay, maybe he has been here more than I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I just think, but it requires being reflective. I think it's that biggest part. What do you do? What do you do to be reflective like that? Because I think it is hard, especially in like you're busy teaching and doing your thing. Like I'm busy doing my thing. It's hard to like take that time to really.
I feel like I'm kind of forced into it. Sometimes I just get really mad, really bothered, really like pessimistic in a way. And it's like I feel like someone's putting me in a corner. It's like, you're going to sit, you're going to think about this until you figure it out kind of thing. And so then I'm kind of forced to sit there and be like, okay. And then it's like, oh yeah, God has done this for me. Whether it's God has done this for me today or God has done this for me in this season of my life.
Yeah. I think that's why people sometimes, obviously this comes from a probably non-religious standpoint, but you hear people always saying that like gratitude lists or sitting down and thinking of all the things you're grateful for is such a calming effect or has such a great way of bringing a positive attitude back into your life. And I think it comes back to that, right? Like in essence, what you're saying too is that like, I'm just taking time to go and think about like all the things that are good in my life and I'm grateful for and all the opportunities I've been given. And we attribute that back to God being in our lives, I think a lot.
Yeah.
But it's true. It's like that can be such a great reset for your mindset, your mentality, like just in general, I think, and make you feel so much better.
Yeah. I
feel like, I don't know. At least that's been my experience. I don't know.
No, I agree.
Man, well, this has been insightful. I mean, I've loved this conversation thus far.
Too.
I feel like we've gained a lot of just like how to cope with things and like how to understand the world.
And to love.
I think it's such a big part of life that people don't understand. Because I think we're always looking, a lot of times we're looking for the differences in people when we actually have a lot more in common. And we have a lot more, like, obviously you and I, we don't have the same experiences. Yeah. But there's probably a lot more we can find that we have similar than we don't. And I don't think people see that often. Yeah. But it can be really eye-opening when people do. Well, Lex, that's been a lot of fun. Yeah. Do you have anything, any advice or anything you'd like to share? Maybe anything you got going on that you want to share to people out there in the world?
Love everyone. and allow yourself to feel the hurt and the pain and just wallow for the time that you need. But don't forget that you have to progress and life moves forward with or without you. And so you have to find a way to find the joy and to find the love and to progress.
Awesome. Well, Lex, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
First time on. Won't be the last, I'm sure. We'll get you back on. We'll hear more about the SPED program. And
yes. Oh my gosh. When I'm a SPED teacher.
When you're a SPED teacher.
Send me your kids if you have any SPED kids. Or send me your Gen Ed kids too.
Who want to speak Spanish.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Lex.
Anytime.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
We'll catch you next time.
Okay, bye.